Hey, Hot Nerds! Welcome back to Hot Nerd Net's Character of the Week. I'm Hot Nerd Sid, your guide through the captivating worlds of fandom, and today we are discussing the main character of Severance, Mark Scout. Mark is a man divided by grief, by corporation, and by his own mind. He joins a long list of fictional characters in the thriller genre who struggle with fragmented identities, moral conflict, and the search for truth. Today, we're breaking down the psychological puzzle from the most conscious to unconscious personality traits of Mark Scout and how his journey connects to other iconic characters in the thriller genre. So, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first up, we have Clay Jensen. So Clay Jensen is from the TV show 13 Reasons Why, and both Clay and Mark are neutral good protagonists, motivated by doing the right thing even when they are deeply conflicted. Clay carries the burden of Hannah Baker's tapes, just as Mark carries the grief of his wife Gemma's death. Both internalize pain while striving for justice, but while Clay acts out through anger and obsession, Mark's emotional repression manifests in his willingness to sever his memories entirely. Okay, let's next talk about Arthur Fleck. Like Mark, Arthur's Myers Briggs type is an INFP, the sentimentalist. This means they're introverted, deeply feeling, and struggling with isolation and systemic control. Arthur is warped by societal neglect, while Mark's psyche is literally split by Lumen. Each becomes a different person depending on their environment. But while Arthur descends into chaos and violence, Mark searches for truth and personal freedom. Now, let's go ahead and examine Elliot Alderson from Mr. Robot. Both Elliot and Mark embody the arrow, which is the dimensional love archetype for independent dreamers, anxious, and driven by emotional intensity and security. Mark Scout and Elliot Alderson don't just share a fragmented sense of identity, they also experience relationships very similarly. Both are independent yet emotionally intense lovers, drawn to partners who ground them but also challenge their fractured selfhood. Elliot's relationship with Angela is marked by distance and longing, similar to Mark's lingering grief over his wife, which defines both his outies' emotional paralysis and his innie's yearning for connection. Both characters struggle with an anxious attachment style, making them deeply devoted but also fearful of intimacy. While Elliot's relationships are often sabotaged by his paranoia and self destructive tendencies, Mark's Annie experiences love as an act of defiance, awakening to the possibility of emotional depth despite his controlled existence. Both struggle with an unstable grasp of selfhood and autonomy. Their anxious attachment to uncovering the truth fuels their actions, even when it leads to suffering. The key difference: Elliot's rebellion is aggressive and calculated, actively dismantling his oppressors. Mark's awakening, in contrast, is gradual, only realizing the depth of his reality as he is exposed to Lumen's secrets one by one. Okay, now that we've explored the first layer of the consciousness, let's go a level deeper. And speaking of Mr. Robot and Angela Moss, here we are with her again. Both she and Mark fall under the RLOEN, reserved, limbic, organized, egocentric, and non curious Big Five archetype. Mark and Angela are both methodical, emotionally reactive individuals who are trapped in systems that strip them of autonomy, forcing them to seek control in whatever ways they can. Angela methodically climbs the corporate ladder, believing she can wield power within E Corp, much like Mark's Audi submits to Lumen's severance program in an attempt to suppress his grief. Both struggle with their limbic tendencies, experiencing high levels of stress and emotional turmoil. Yet, they can channel it into rigid organization and structured environments as a means of self preservation. While Mark's submission to Lumen reflects his avoidance of pain, Angela's calculated decision reflect her desperate bid for control. Angela ultimately succumbs to the very system she sought to manipulate, whereas Mark's journey takes him toward rebellion and self-discovery. Next up, let's talk about Walter Flynn from the TV show Breaking Bad. Both Mark and Walter are melancholic, phlegmatic temperaments, observing their world from a place of sadness and deep morality. Flynn wants to believe in the goodness of his father, just as Mark's Audi initially wants to believe in the morality of Lumen. But the key difference: Mark eventually wakes up to the truth and takes action, while Flynn remains tragically unaware until it's too late. Now let's go ahead and move over and discuss one of my favorite connections on this map. And that's Cliff Stanfield from Black Mirror, who, like Mark, embodies the self preservation social Enneagram instinct combination. These characters prioritize security, stability, and survival, but are also deeply aware of their social standing and external relationships, shaping how they navigate their oppressive environments. Mark and Cliff both experience a reality where their physical selves are in one place while their consciousness operates in another. Mark's any exists within Lumen, severed from his Audi's awareness, while Cliff's consciousness remains on Earth while his real body is left stranded in space. Both characters experience an existential detachment, yet each finds a way to rationalize their existence and maintain a sense of control. Their self preservation instinct makes them highly methodical, ensuring they don't take risks without considering their long term consequences. They focus on survival first, rebellion second, avoiding outright chaos in favor of strategic endurance. Meanwhile, their social instinct prevents them from fully isolating, compelling them to manage their relationships carefully in a world where they lack true autonomy. While Mark begins to actively challenge his corporate oppression, Cliff remains compliant, hesitating to disrupt the equilibrium of his artificial existence, even as he yearns for true connection. This highlights a crucial difference. Mark fights for selfhood, while Cliff remains suspended between two realities, reluctant to reclaim his agency until it's too late. Okay, let's go ahead and move to the deepest level of the unconscious. And this is going to continue along with the Enneagram personality system, with Chris Washington from Get Out as another compelling comparison. Both he and Mark share the Enneagram 9 Wing 1, the peacemaker with a perfectionistic streak. Both Chris and Mark start as reserved, introspective individuals who find themselves trapped in systems of control that exploit their desire to avoid conflict. Chris initially tries to rationalize and adapt to the strained microaggressions he experiences at the Armitage estate, much like Mark's Audi attempts the Severance program as a way to suppress grief. Both characters prioritize keeping the peace, but as they become more aware of their situation, their perfectionistic streak pushes them toward decisive action. The difference? While Chris's survival depends on direct confrontation and escape, Mark's rebellion is a slower, internal journey, requiring him to piece together his fragmented identity before he can truly fight back. Both, however, ultimately reject their captors and fight for their autonomy. Okay, let's go ahead and move to the last part of the Enneagram system, and that is tri-type. Lester Nygaard from Fargo 2014 is another fascinating character who shares Mark Scout's Enneagram tri-type 963, the mediator. This is a combination that seeks harmony, adapts to circumstances, and struggles with self definition. Both Lester and Mark begin their journeys as passive, mild mannered individuals who have been shaped by external forces rather than their own desires. As part of the 963 mediator tri-type, they are driven by a need for balance and belonging, often adjusting themselves to meet expectations while struggling with their true identity. Mark's Audi passively submits to Lumen's severance program, believing that erasing his pain is the only way forward. Similarly, Lester starts as a people pleaser, allowing himself to be dominated by others until circumstances push both of them to change. Their desire for peace is at odds with the reality of their situations, forcing them to confront their own agency. The difference? While Mark ultimately seeks truth and self liberation, Lester's transformation is darker, leading him into deception and ruthless self preservation. Mark's growth allows him to break free, while Lester's descent into manipulation ensures his eventual downfall. Okay, lastly, let's compare Mark to Jeff Atkins from 13 Reasons Why. Both share the hero lover sage archetype, genuine, well meaning, and self sacrificing. Jeff embodies the hero through his selflessness and moral integrity, much like Mark's Innie, who instinctively protects his colleagues as they begin to uncover Lumen's secrets. Both characters are willing to sacrifice their own comfort for the sake of others, demonstrating unwavering loyalty. Jeff and Mark approach relationships with deep emotional sincerity. Jeff cares deeply for his friends, ensuring Clay has the support and encouragement he needs. Similarly, Mark's connection to his wife, both in memory and in rediscovering Miss Casey, serves as a driving force in his journey toward truth. Their sage archetype comes through in their ability to guide others. Jeff gives Clay wisdom and pushes him toward emotional growth, while Mark, despite his confusion, unknowingly sets an example for his itty coworkers by encouraging curiosity and defiance against Lumen's control. Jeff is a fully formed mentor and protector from the start, a guiding force in Clay's life. Mark, on the other hand, evolves into these roles, only realizing his strength and influence as his any gains self awareness. Both share the hero lover sage archetype, genuine, well meaning, and self sacrificing. Now, Mark Scout is many, many things: a man drowning in grief, a worker trapped in a dystopian nightmare, and a reluctant hero searching for truth. He shares his soul with characters like Clay Jensen, who is struggling with grief, and Elliot Alderson, who is trapped in a disassociative world. He mirrors Chris Washington's battle for bodily autonomy and Lester Nygaard's quiet transformation. And at his core, he is a hero, a lover, and a sage, making him one of the most compelling protagonists in modern fiction. Thanks for joining us, and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and comment to ask for which character we should do next. Bye!